Hi, Nick Houston here for Gotham Sound and Communications. I am joined by Jim Keaney up in Massachusetts. How are you, Jim?
Doing well, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Great. So, Jim, we asked you to be here today because you were one of the early adopters of the Zaxcom Nova 2, and we wanted to find out how things were going and, kind of your decision-making process and all that stuff.
Yeah, the Nova 2, it's very new. I've only taken it on real jobs a couple times so far. I haven't had it too long, but I owned the Nova 1 before that, so I'm pretty familiar with it. And the Nova 1's been great for me, but I'm kind of wading into the waters because I know that I'm like one of a couple guys who have the very new Nova 2, and I know they're making little nips and tucks via firmware as we go. But yeah, so far it's been awesome. It's the Nova in general is really it's just amazing how small it is. That's the thing that sort of led me to it. I made a big change with all my gear probably about 2 years ago. I think I reached out to you. It was like the worst time ever. It was like right when COVID had hit, and I was thinking about, or right before COVID hit, I should say, and I was thinking about going digital with the wireless, and so I was considering, a couple of the different brands, and you sent me a few Zaxcom wireless systems and the Nova, which was still fairly new at the time. And I took it for a demo, had a bunch of time off thanks to COVID. And so, and it held its own against the systems I was using before that. But I liked the fact that it was digital because, with 600 repack, losing spectrum, I was starting to think more about that. I felt like I was running into more issues with, interference and thinking so much about intermod with my previous systems, which weren't digital. So the first move was I wanted to go digital, and then when I saw that they had this new Nova mixer recorder, and I got the Nova 2 right here. I'll kind of show it off. What I liked about it was like it's super small and really lightweight, and the two modules. It takes two modules that go in the back here, the MRX 414s, and those can do up to 4 channels each. So I've got this 8-channel wireless rig in this little, I think it's under 4 pounds. And I should point out that I have a third-party accessory on this Nova 2. They don't come like this. This is the audio workbench. I think you guys carry these.
Is it the feather rig?
Yeah, the feather rig.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an accessory that this company Audio Workbench made, and it basically is just like a little 3D printed chassis that holds it, gives it some mounting points on the top. But the coolest part, in my opinion, is it has battery sled built in. You can move it on either side. You can put other accessories here, like a little pouch for, a hop transmitter and stuff like that. So, but yeah, so even with that, I think this, with a 1 pound battery on here, this thing's like, 5 pounds maybe. So that made a huge difference, and that was one of the big attractors for me to make the switch to the Nova as well. But there's a ton of other little things that really sold me on this thing, which is just all the little digital, the control of the digital wireless systems. Like they have remote control gain, and you can change the frequencies and just stuff like that. But you can do it right from the face of the mixer, which is awesome. So they have these 5 infinity encoders. So these are like free spinning. You know where you are based on where the dots show you are. So what's cool about that is it gives you like multi-purpose control over various things. So you can set up to, I think it's 5 different banks of 5 encoders. So you could have 25 channels, all controllable right here. And then you can make these encoders with the switch of a button. It's kind of hard because I'm upside down, but if you hit the Zaxnet button, now this encoder for, maybe your lavalier number 1 is now controlling the gain of that pack. And then if you switch to trim, now that same knob is controlling the trim of that channel, and so on. So it just gives you a lot of control in like a really small package. So those are like the biggest reasons why I moved.
And so when your system, are you using all 8 channels all the time, or how do you usually have it set up?
I work mostly in like documentary, well, I wouldn't call it reality, but sort of like renovation style, renovation home type shows and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's not, I'm not using all 8 all the time, but I definitely have a good amount of days a year where I need more than, the 4 or 5. So it's nice to have that control. And they actually have, they put out a control surface that goes with this too, the Aria 8 and the Aria, there's like a little sidecar. Actually, I think maybe I can show it with this laptop. There's some of it.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, so it's cool. And yeah, it's really small, lightweight. And so for the bigger shows where I'm mixing more than, five people on these 5 encoders, I'll typically bust out one of these, and it just gives me more, real-time faders. But again, it's nice because if you didn't have that, you can still mix more than 5 because you have the bank system on the Novas, which is really cool. So, yeah.
Have you ever taken, just curious, have you ever taken the Aria over the shoulder? Because, I mean, you're rocking a 4-pound, not a bag, but a feather rig. And then if you needed the encoders, is that something that's even possible?
I've seen some people post pictures where they like lay it on top of the Nova because it's almost the same size, like footprint. But I have not done that. It's usually, I'm not like wearing all this stuff and trying to run and gun with it. It's more like if, like the shows I work on are typically like lavalier heavy, so there's probably no boom involved anyway. And I've got 9 people in a kitchen talking about how great it is. I'm just gonna bust this thing out and just mix wires. So
Put it on the corner. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm usually looking for a place to put this stuff down. And again, just to try to stay lightweight and not wear, all this weight all the time. So that's another reason why I like that feather rig. Is because it allows me to actually take this out of the bag. Like when I transport it to a job, it's in a bag, so it's protected. But if I'm on a scene where we're just kind of walking through the house and there's 4 or 5 people on wires, I'm just clipping my harness right here, and I just wear it. It's super lightweight, and I get made fun of by the cast for having such a small, little rig compared to what I used to have.
Gosh, so. I would think that would be kind of cooler.
It is cooler. They're just making fun of me, They're like, oh, your fancy little postage stamp, because it looks like I'm just wearing this necklace,
Yeah, yep. I mean, I remember back in the day wearing a big bag that was like 30 pounds and coming home to my pregnant wife at the time, and it was like, it's the same thing. She didn't really appreciate that all that much, but what can we do? So with your Nova system, so you've got up to 8 wires coming in on the 2 414s, and then how are you sending? What's your best practices for sending to camera and for doing time code and producer IFBs and things like that?
Yeah, I'm pretty much all Zaxcom for everything. Even time. I was gonna say maybe not time code all the time, but if I can get away with it, time code too. I use these the URXs. Which are these little guys here. So this is the 50. It's got a few less features. It's got a fixed antenna. And then the URX 100, removable antenna. It's got this little TA5 port here, which has some I think walkie-talkie interfacing capabilities. I don't really use them for that so much, but this is where the time code can come out. And so yeah, you're able with these to send time code and stereo audio on one transmitter. And I'll pull up my Nova 1, which is what you're hearing me through right now. But so this is my Nova 1 rig, also in a feather rig battery. And then this is the CL3. I think they're up to the CL5 now, which has some extra connectivity. But basically, this is my camera hop transmitter, which is cool. It actually has a little card in there, so it's also recording all the time. Nice little peace of mind to know that my mix is being recorded somewhere else, regardless of what happens. Although so far I've never had any issue with media, so knock on wood. And then this little guy here, I get asked about this a lot. This is my FDP2 filter, and you can get these tuned block specific. And so if you're going to run your IFB or your camera hop in a certain block, you can get this tuned to it, and it's just basically like a bandpass filter, which just kind of helps clean up the spray from transmitter, because your antenna from the transmitter is literally 1 inch or maybe 6 inches at most from your receivers. So that helps clean things up. Dragging cables here. But yeah, so that's the That's the camera link transmitter. And that's actually one of the little things I noticed that helped clean up my whole system coming from the previous brands I was using was because you can run, I'm running my camera hop, producer IFBs, and timecode, but mostly just those two. The fact that you can run an IFB and a camera hop, and it's like, for the most part, I find these to be what I would consider broadcast quality. They're not as, from what I understand, like the dynamic range isn't quite as full as maybe like the RX200, which is their slightly bigger, like legitimate camera hop receiver. But I just love that like these are sort of like this sort of Swiss Army knife with a bunch of features inside. So you can give it to a producer, you can put it on a camera. It's also time code for a camera. But one of the hidden, what I was trying to get to is one of the hidden sort of benefits here when I moved to Zaxcom was that I lost a whole transmitter from the previous bag because I was running a separate transmitter in like IFB mode and then broadcast hop transmitter. And so I just felt like it was, sort of creating, more of like an RF hornet's nest in a small area than we needed to have. So yeah, one of those little added perks of the whole thing. I was like, oh yeah, I get to lose that, less power. And that's one of the other things about the Nova is it is not power hungry at all. Like you can, I definitely get through one of these eSmart batteries per day, but just barely. And especially if you have a small day, like it's just two people on labs, you can actually, in the Novas, you can turn off your preamps. You can lose things that you don't need to use all the time, which conserves power. So yeah, it's good.
So you're really so when you say a day, are we talking like a full 12-hour day, or what kind of day are we talking about for, the one battery?
Again, it just depends on what you're running, because in the Novas, you can turn off each of the modules. So if I was on a small day where it's two people on wires all day long, I can turn off the second module altogether. I can turn off the phantom power or the preamps for the microphone inputs. And I think I did a test on this a long time ago when I first got the stuff, just to kind of see what the number was. But I want to say a Nova running off a eSmart 98 battery with the camera hop transmitter, I think it was like 6 hours or so. I think that's with all the wires turned on, so it's probably even more. But yeah, it's I don't think I can get through a 10-hour day on one battery, but almost. Some days
But you can
almost.
get to lunch. I mean, that's the important part.
Yeah. Oh, easily.
Get to lunch,
easily.
change your batteries, and
easily.
now what transmitters are you using with this? Do you have a bunch, or what's your poison?
Yeah, I've gone through a bunch so far. I'm kind of trying them all out, but the latest ones I've been using are the LA5s, the TRX LA5s. And before that, I was using LA3s. I still have a bunch of those as well, but I bought 4 of these recently from you guys. And yeah, I like them. So the only real difference with the LA5 is that they gave us a 5-volt preamp for labs, which just seems to be a better fit as far as powering them. I think the previous models were 3.3 volts, and so it was like slightly underpowering some labs, and it would sort of affect the headroom. So this is just that's why I was happy to see them update and give us these. But I like these. They're really small. Again, I'm not working in much narrative. I do have smaller packs. I don't have them with me right here, but like the ZMT. I have the 3s. They already have the 4s out now, and the 4s do the same thing here, which is they gave us 5 volts. But yeah, the ZMT-3 Phantoms, which is cool too, because they're small. So if I do have actors where I really need to be more careful about where I hide them, like the reality sort of style shows I work on, we're able to typically just like put these in someone's back pocket, and it's good enough. But if you're really trying to hide them, I would go down to the ZMTs. And what's cool about the Phantoms is you can also use them as boom transmitters for like shotgun microphones and stuff like that. So I own 4 of those. And I have 2 set up for booms. Again, I think it's the same company that does the Feather Rig. Audio Workbench make these little adapters that you can, they're like 3D printed, so you can pop your ZMT Phantoms into this little sort of like a Caddy and it gives you a slot for an even bigger battery, which
Oh,
gets
yeah,
you
the BT100 adapters.
yeah, the BT100 adapters, and that'll get you through the whole day, typically, running Phantom. So yeah, so I keep 2 set up like that, and then I have 2 that are just for labs if I need to hide them in really small spots. But yeah, I've got a bunch of these, and I'm liking them. I tried the ZMT-3Xs, which were cool too. They're microdot, and they have 2, so you can actually run them in stereo, which is kind of a cool thing. I didn't have a lot of uses for that, but I know I've seen some guys post pictures where they use them as like car mics, where they'll put them up in the dash, and they'll put what are those DPA goosenecky ones called? I have
Oh, the
2 of them.
4097s or 4098s. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
have a pair of the 4097s, and you can do something like that where you're running them off one transmitter and taking it as a stereo signal. So, yeah.
Oh, cool. I've heard people in football use it too, where they'll run one mic to the front of the pads in the center and one on the back, so they get the crunch when they hike the
Cool.
ball, and they get the quarterback yelling.
Oh, that's really smart. Yeah. And I think the probably real purpose for it must be like for super important live events or something, like where you're double micing, like the president or something, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And or somebody who doesn't want to wear 2 packs or
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yep.
Cool. And how often do you use ZaxNet to change frequencies or adjust gain and all that stuff?
To change frequencies, almost never, because it's I should really say, like, that might be the best thing about the Nova is, well, there's a lot of best things, but one of the best things is how easy it is to scan. Maybe I don't know if I can do like a demo, but you hit, like, in the morning, I hit this button, this takes me into this screen, I hit scan, you can zoom out, and you can just push like 2 buttons, and this is super blown out, but you'd see it scanning if it wasn't blown out. And basically, after it scans, I'm going to probably hit 2 more buttons to send frequencies to all, it could be up to 8 packs if you have them all going. So scan's done. You can sort of look at the scan, find a hole in the spectrum. I see one here right in the middle, around like 544. I hit a button, the pick button. And when I hit pick, it will automatically populate frequencies for whatever amount of packs you have chosen. So if you have all 8, it gives you 8 frequencies. Then you hit, then you turn on your transmitters. Then you hit send, and it just deploys all those 8 frequencies to those 8 packs. And now everything's ready to go. And that's one of the other things about going digital in general. I think that was really kind of changed my workflow, is not having to worry about the sort of self-inflicted intermod, like when I was doing analog wires. I would have my little, intermod app out, and I'd be calculating and paying just a lot of attention to it. And now it's like, you can find this little like spot of space in the spectrum, and you can smash 8 frequency lines right in there, and they all jive together. And I've never experienced yet any sort of intermod, at least created by by me. You still have to look around, look at the scans and try to make sense of it. Or if you're working on shows with other mixers, and then you have to really kind of figure it out. But for most of my jobs, I'm just pick, send, scan, pick, send, done. And then it's just, everything's rock solid all day. And so I'm almost never changing frequencies. One thing I find myself doing, just because I can, is riding the transmitter gains on the transmitters. So, if there's a scene where someone's whispering, you turn them up, and then they start speaking normally or too loud, you can bring them down, and you can kind of do it in real time. There's like a slight lag maybe on that, but it's, for the most part, it's pretty quick. And when I work on shows like I work on This Old House, like a home improvement show, that's the kind of show where people speaking normal voice, you could have them at a certain level, and then when they start, hammering or something like that, you
Right.
can take it down. So, yeah, so that's when I might ride it a little bit more. So I do find myself using that feature. But because the wireless seems so solid, and the scan, pick, send part of this thing makes it so I haven't really ever had days where, if I'm on the same location, where a frequency went from working to not working. and I'm in Boston, so it's a fairly congested area, RF wise. But yeah. So that's about it. I'm trying to think, what else can I do with Zaxcom? I think there's one more thing, but I'm not thinking about it. Oh, you can put stuff to sleep sometimes, which is cool. You can put packs to sleep to conserve power and things like that.
So do you do that at lunchtime as well, like before you power down, or?
I'll typically change batteries for lunch, so I'll let them die or let them, or collect them and then rebat them and hand them back out at lunch, after lunch. But yeah, sometimes it's nice, like especially if you have like a wardrobe. I remember we had a show about a month ago where the homeowner got all dressed up for this like big reveal, and she's wearing like this crazy dress. So I'm like, oh God, like this is gonna be a nightmare to get a mic in there and a pack. So it was buried in there. So I gave her like lithium batteries, and she was one where I was like riding it all day long because I'm like, I don't want to have to go in there again. Like I just want this to make it to the day, and it did. And actually with these LA5s, I should mention that is, I don't know what they did. And I think they did the same. I think they're using a different preamp in these. Same with the ZMT4s. But they're just they're way more efficient battery-wise. I don't know how they figured it out, but I think I ran some tests on the LA5s when I first got them in the on lithiums. They got just about 10 hours, which is awesome. So for the shows I do, which are 10-hour days, typically, you don't even have to change them at lunch. Maybe you just put them to sleep for lunch just to make sure you get through the end. But even on nickel metal hydrate, which is typically what I use in these, I think I was getting, I'm going to forget now, 6.5 hours, something like that. So definitely, again, gets you to lunch. So
Oh, that's
nice.
great. So you are actually able to use rechargeables, because I know that's one of the things that people always talk about is, what are the best ones? And, how is it going to get me through the day? And usually, I don't know, a lot of times people report 3 and 4 hours. So 5 and 6 or 7, and that's pretty great.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, what I've learned for my workflow is that I try to use rechargeables wherever I can. The only time I won't use rechargeables is typically on unmonitored camera hops, which are like typically these. I'll put lithiums in these for the day on that because I know they'll definitely get me at least 12 hours, typically on like a URX 100. But yeah, otherwise rechargeables are the way to go, man. Like lithium batteries are insane right now. I'm sure
So
you're aware
expensive.
of that. Like,
Yeah.
I can't like it's just disgusting how expensive they are. Like because I typically buy the Energizer Ultimates, and I feel like they've like doubled in price or something. So
It's insane. Yeah, it's been at least 30% in the last 6 months, and it just keeps going up. So this is my own curiosity. What is your rechargeable battery of choice? Because I feel like everybody's got their own one that they like best.
yeah, I've been using the PowerX Pro 2700s. I don't know why. Maybe that's the first one I ever tried, and they worked. So I mean, there might be better ones out there. I know some people are using like IKEA batteries.
Yeah, I was going to say
the
that.
Latas or something. But I guess they do okay. But yeah, for me, it's been the PowerX Pros. They seem fine. They get me to lunch anyway. So yeah,
That's what you need. Now, do you ever have to use the recording feature or anything like that?
oh yeah, man. It's like I'm glad you're bringing up these features because I feel like I'm forgetting so much about this because I've been using it for so long. Like if you asked me after like a month, I'd be gushing. But yeah, I do use so all the transmitters in Zaxcom's world have a micro SD card inside there, and so you can roll them either. You can set up your Nova, especially if you're using a Nova, you can tell it to follow transport commands, meaning if I put the Nova into record, this goes into record at the exact same time because they're constantly talking. These are all running the same time code off your Nova's ZaxNet master clock. So again, everything within range is staying together. And even if these fall out of range, they hold time code for quite a while, pretty well. But yeah, so I have used it, not often, but if there's ever a scene where somebody maybe goes around a car or like behind a house halfway through and, like I wasn't close enough, you can know that your recording is safe on their pack locally. And maybe even a better use case scenario of that is like, I've had scenes where they're like, all right, the 4 of them are going to get in the car and say a couple words, but they're not going to drive away. And then they drive away and they keep talking. And the producer looks at you like, did we get that? And you're like, well, yeah, technically. Like, you didn't hear it.
Yeah.
You didn't hear it, but it's somewhere. It's in here. So yeah, you got to either pull the cards out. But then that brings us to another really cool Zaxcom feature, which is re-record. So again, this is within the Nova, you have the ability to like basically you can queue it up. Like, you go to your playback screen and you find the point in time where you had a dropout or whatever you want to try to remix, and you hit your cue, you find the spot, and then right before that missing spot happens, you throw it into re-record. The Zaxnet sends a command to all the packs and tells them to go into playback at that exact spot using timecode to sync it all back up. Mm-hmm. And so it's as if like your scene is unfolding live again. So you kind of get a do-over if you need it. And I mean, it could even be that you just forgot to hit record. Sometimes that happens. I've done that before. Actually, yeah, there was one where we were shooting a scene upstairs, and then they wanted to get some VO with someone else downstairs. And so they were in the middle of this lighting changeover, which I was like, oh, that'll take 10 minutes. So I'm like, yeah, let's go grab that quick 1 sentence of VO. So run downstairs, throw a mic on the guy, hit record, we're rolling. He does his VO. I come back upstairs, and they just finished a take. And I was like, oh, you didn't notice I wasn't here, but also you didn't notice that you didn't hear in your IFBs, like, so. And they were like, oh, crap. Oh, yeah, whoops. And so luckily I was like, all right, I got it. It's in their packs. We'll get it back. So, next time I had a little downtime in the day, I just went back to that time and found the spot, hit re-record, and was able to mix it as if I was really there and deliver that file to post without them having to like pull a bunch of cards out and go looking for stuff. So, yeah, I don't use it a ton because like the wireless holds up really well. But when you need it, it's there. And that's just like, I just love that sort of redundancy in this whole system, is that it's everywhere. It's, the Nova itself is running on 2 cards. It's a primary and a mirror card. Every transmitter you have is also running. It's all timecode synced together. It's running a recording there. And if you're running like a hop transmitter, like the CL345, those are also recording whatever you're running through that. So typically it's a mix. So yeah. Nice peace of mind.
Cool. So I guess let me go back a little bit to when you switched over to the Nova from your other wireless and other systems. What was that process like? Did you know you wanted to go Nova? Did you demo other things? Just walk me through that.
Yeah, let me think back. It was about a little over 2 years ago. So I think, yeah, I was just, like I said earlier, my main gripe with the current system I had was I just felt like I was dealing with dropouts and little hashy gremlins and stuff like that. So the first thing I wanted to upgrade was the wireless. And then I think once I looked at Zaxcom stuff, I realized, oh, like it's all kind of connected. It's like this like ecosystem, they call it. So, if I got the Nova, now I have control over X, Y, and Z, and that would be really cool. And it's smaller than my other one, and it has whatever, more tracks. It has this, it has that. So it was kind of like a no-brainer once I looked into it. And I know some other mixers in my area who have been using Zax like for a long time. And I just, I talked to a few of them, and yeah, the general consensus was like, once you go Zaxcom, like you kind of don't go back, because they give you all these cool features that you don't get with the other brands. So yeah, so I think that was kind of it. It was, I was a little skeptical because I also heard people tell me that Zaxcom workflow was, or the ecosystem was a little, I don't want to say complicated, but it's definitely, I feel like there's more parameters because of all the connectivity of all the different units. So it's like the menus go deeper, the matrices go deeper. They're very flexible. Like you can route anything to anything. Whereas like the previous mixer recorder I was on felt, more intuitive in some way, because it was almost like it had like training wheels on it. Like you can't you can't even make this wrong if you wanted to, but with Zaxcom, you can like mix yourself into a pretzel essentially if you wanted to. So I feel like the learning curve on Zaxcom goes a little deeper, but that's the price you pay to like have all these cool features and all this connectivity and, you know, sort of the sort of ecosystem of it all talking to each other and remote control and time code everywhere and all that stuff. So yeah, I think it took a little while for me to fully embrace it and like really feel like I had a grasp on it. But after 2 years of having it now, like I feel like I know everything about this machine. So about everything really, because you kind of have to, like, you can't take this stuff out if you don't know like everything it's doing and why it's doing it and when you want to use it and that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, it's really powerful stuff. It's really cool tech, and yeah, I can't imagine going to anything else. And that's why I bought the Nova 2. I still own the Nova 1, and I think I'm just gonna hang on to it, to be honest, to just have like a fully redundant second rig. But the Nova 2, I don't know if we talked about it, but the real main the new things about it are I/O. I think is like really, unless I'm forgetting something, but I think that's about it.
I'm pretty sure it's the AES I/O on the back.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something I wanted, because there are shows that I'll do where I want to multi-track on the Nova, but I also want to dump the wireless channels into a larger format console. And I felt like with the Nova 1, you couldn't do quite as many channels like that. There was sort of a limit. With the Nova 2, they actually added a 7th and 8th bus. Nova 1 only has one, I think 6. So, so yeah, we gained some buses, and we gained a bunch of I/O as far as AES. Like I think it's up to 16. You can put 16 into it one way or another, and it has more outputs. So yeah, those are the main reasons I upgraded. And also just to have more, like a little more redundancy in my kit here.
And how's it been being an early adopter?
It's been good. I mean, I'm actually in pretty close communications with the Zaxcom team. I never met any of them in real life, but you know, they seem like really cool people, and I know they run a pretty tight little shop down in New Jersey, and yeah, so I'm actually happy to like help figure this out, because it's like it just came out, and I know with any product that comes out, there's always like a few little, you know, like little fixes or little additions or little things that could be better. So I was happy to, like, you know, to get my hands on one of these early so I can be part of that process and help try to make it better. And it's getting there. It's, I mean, it's functional at this point, and it's working, and I've taken it on a job last week, and I kind of ran it like in tandem with my Nova 1 just as a backup, and it did fine. So it's there. But yeah, so far so good. I can't complain. I haven't tried every single thing about it. Like, I haven't had a chance to really dig into all this new I/O and stuff like that. But yeah, so far so good. It's been great.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Jim, is there anything else? Because we are getting close to we're over the 30-minute mark. Is there anything else that you want to share about kind of your mentality and workflow, or anything at all?
No, I think we kind of covered it all. I mean, it's just, yeah, I'm a big fan of this tech. I think it's so cool how it all sort of interacts, and yeah, I'm looking forward to some of the new things they have cooking. One thing I think I can mention that only because I've seen their owner mention it, is they're gonna make basically like these knobs, but more of them as like an addition. Sort of like I think they had one of those for their old mixer, the Nomad, the FP8.
Right. Yep.
So I'm looking forward to that, because I think that would fill a need for me on those kind of shows where I was saying, like, we have 9 people in a room. I'd love to have more physical knobs to cover scenes like that. And that could be something that I'm sure we just, you know, plug a USB cable in and there it is. And then when you don't need it, you toss it back in the bag kind of thing. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Cool. So we're not filming this live. It's a couple of days before Thanksgiving, so hopefully we'll get it out for Thanksgiving. If anybody watching has questions, leave them in the comments, and we'll try and get some answers from Jim when he has time. But my question for you, Jim, is what is for Thanksgiving dinner?
I think we're hosting this year. Well, we're sort of half hosting, and we're going to keep it small. I think we're just going to, we're going to do the traditional turkey, stuffing, all the fixings. So what about you? You got anything fun lined up?
My sister is hosting for the first time ever, so we're going to have turkey with maybe a side of anxiety. So it'll be fun. Don't kill me, sister, please.
Whoops. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, Jim, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and go through your Zaxcom setup and share with us about your work. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Nick.
All
Have a
right.
good holiday.
Thank you too. To watch this video and more, go to gothamsound.tv. And as always, email us at info@gothamsound.com. Thank you so much for watching.